According to the Wall Street Journal, 1 liter of a soda drink creates 346 grams of carbon dioxide emissions. That's less than half the tree to toilet paper 771-gram carbon footprint of a mega roll of ultra-soft toilet paper as measured by the environmental group, the U.S. Natural Resources Defense Council. It adds that math like this is fast becoming obligatory, with investors increasing pressure on businesses to disclose the emissions of greenhouse gases related to their products and services. Regulators are also starting to ask about that too. So within the next couple of years, every public company in the U.S. might be required to report climate information. Accounting for carbon is going to be the coming stage, and companies should be ready for this move. This might be something governance principles will encompass, especially with regulators in the United States and in Europe already demanding or are expected to require that public companies disclose their greenhouse gas emissions. That might include the emissions produced by their suppliers and their customers. So could this be in the offing for our listed companies? Good evening. You're watching the Business Insider here on Nile TV International. I'm Ayman Salah. Our weekly program tackles events affecting businesses and the economy, and we aim to bring you the inside story. Welcome back. Let's start with the first news item. The National Investment Bank will not, and here we highlight not, be liquidated, but only a restructuring is taking place. The state-owned National Investment Bank, or NIB, is not being liquidated, according to its vice chairman and managing director, in a statement that refuted news reports based on an IMF review. Work is currently underway to implement a plan to restructure the bank, which the government announced 3 years ago, with a focus on rescheduling and paying down the bank's obligations according to a clear and agreed timetable. The plan will see the National Investment Bank resolve financial entanglements with government institutions, part of which has already been completed with a number of government agencies, whereby the bank acquired a number of high-value assets. The NIB, or National Investment Bank, will also undergo an administrative restructuring in the upcoming period. And the second and final news item is that the NTRA, or the National Telecommunications Regulatory Authority, mandated a 2 million Egyptian pound fine or penalties for Egypt's telecom companies following complaints. The NTRA stated that all 4 telecoms reimburse users a combined total of £2 million over service failures that took place during the first half of 2021. Those who phoned in to the authority with complaints will receive a sum based on the type of complaint. The French company will pay 65% of the refunds owed, while the British one is responsible for 23%, the Saudi 10%, and Egypt's 2%. Complaints of poor service ranged in the vicinity of 118,000 in the first half of 2021 to the NTRA's hotline or through WhatsApp or other open channels. Network operators responded to 92% of all complaints and had an average response time of 2 days, the NTRA said in its first ever semi-annual report, which breaks down user complaints about telecom services during the 6 months ending June 2021. Half of the complaints were about ADSL services at 52%, followed by mobile services at 31% and home phones at 17%. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Business Insider. Tonight we're discussing the capital market as a catalyst for economic growth. I'm honored to be joined by Ms. Rania Yaqub. She's a board member in the Egyptian Stock Exchange, the EGX. A pleasure having you on the show here tonight.
Thank you.
We're going to discuss the capital market as a source of funding for economic growth, and we're also going to tackle the small and medium enterprises and how can they benefit from the capital market, especially since we have a lack of awareness on the part of many of that industry. If you will, let's watch this report and then we'll return to start our discussion.
Egypt's capital market is a key source of funding for economic growth as well as the stimulation of small and medium-sized enterprise. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli stressed that SMEs are a top priority as the sector plays a pivotal role in developing and advancing production, while the national strategy for developing SMEs aims to facilitate increased access for the segment to all forms of financing. This is where the role of the capital market comes in to finance the growth of this vital labor-intensive sector. The stock market helps companies access finance and also improves their capabilities in terms of governance, disclosure and transparency, as well as qualifies them to attract foreign and local investments. The chairman of the EGX, Mohammed Farid, had highlighted that the stages and components of the reform plan in the sector include developing the sponsor system, reduced from 33 to 8. Other items include meeting with licensed research companies and activating the role of investor relations, as well as developing the registration system for SMEs through a new department at the EGX and developing the trading platform to accommodate the SMEs. The EGX 30 is in the green year to date for what we are pretty sure is the first time in 2021. EGX 30 rose 0.3%. Wednesday's close in turnover of 1.74 billion Egyptian pounds. That's 24% above the 90-day average, with local investors being net buyers. The index is up 0.4%. Shares worth 1.91 billion Egyptian pounds changed hands today, nearly 32% above the trailing 90-day average.
Welcome back. So the capital market is our topic tonight. I'm joined by Ms. Rania Yaqub, a member of the board of directors of the Egyptian Stock Exchange. A pleasure having you on the show here tonight. Let's start with your analysis of the performance of the stock exchange, Egypt Stock Exchange. Let's start with you.
Egypt has an economic reform that has been praised by the institution, international institutions, but don't reflect it on the exchange. That because there is a huge gap between the people or between the people who are responsible from the government and for investors and what they need. So we need a new vision, a new speech to reach the people who are responsible for that fight.
Isn't that the role of the Egyptian stock market, the associations, the capital market associations, the groups, professionals in this field?
I think through the last year we saw many efforts in this position, but we need efforts from the government. We need more effort to attract new investors, new institutions. We need new IPOs. We have delayed government IPOs for many years till now. There was suitable times, then we didn't take the decision that we have suffered today from lack of liquidity in the market.
So there are announcements that there will be the public companies will undergo an IPO, and this has been announced that during the second half of this year there will be IPOs for public enterprises.
We hope to accelerate this program as soon as possible because the market is suffering from lack of liquidity from institutions. We have liquidity from individuals, but that affect the market negatively. We have fluctuations, many fluctuations, according to the structure of the individual. So if we have new IPOs, new company have been issued or listed in the market, it will give stability and liquidity in the market.
Is this the only thing that will enhance liquidity and stability in the market, or do we need more depth other than the IPOs? That we need to focus on certain sectors, we need to diversify the risk factor, if you will, so that you can provide institutional investors with a variety of products, if you will.
I think we need more sectors to be listed in the market, like educational sector, health sector, sports. I think we have new IPO for sports sector. All of that will attract more liquidity, more institutions who look for new IPOs or for new ways to invest their money in the market. I think through or during the last period, there are many plans from the government or from the private sector to issue some procedures or to issue some IPOs and reforms in the market. I saw many reforms like reforms or restructures happened in the Nile, yes,
Nile Stock Exchange.
I think it will actually
NILEX. NILEX, right. Okay, so there is, there seems to be a difference in time zones, if you will, between certain decision makers and between those affecting the change. You see, the big decision makers, they understand and they realize the importance of the capital market. However, when it comes to the small, minute operational details, there seems to be a lag. Do you, in the stock market, as a board, do you put this as a priority to be addressed in the coming stage?
I think we have spoken about that in last session. I think we are interested to have a new vision, a new ways to speak with the government or with the people who are responsible for that file. I think we have to reach them by new ideas. We have to reinforce the role of the Egyptian Stock Exchange through the coming period.
Shouldn't there be a concerted strategy in order to enhance and increase awareness and segment the stakeholders, if you will?
Actually, we are a new board. We are setting our plans. We are putting our strategies to work through the 4 years, the coming 4 years, and we are interested more by reinforcing the role of the Egyptian exchange.
All right, talk to me about the priorities for this board.
The priority for our board is to reach for or to increase the awareness of the investment for new people, especially young people. We want to have a protocol in educational level to put investment in the curriculum for young people. We have to reach other sectors of people. We have lack of knowledge all over the Egypt, so it's a priority for us to increase or to enhance the awareness of the investment.
Okay, so enhance awareness is one priority.
It's our first priority for now. I think in the file of the taxes, that is obstacle for investment in Egypt or in the stock exchange have also a priority through the next period. I think we have to reopen this file again with the government. It has a negative effect on the investors.
Right. This priority, the tax priority, was addressed board. As do you foresee as prominent sectors in the coming stage, and why?
Still, the real estate sector is the most important sector to attract.
You haven't changed.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
always saying the real estate sector.
Real estate is the most important sector in the stock exchange. I think it's a heaven for the liquidity. I think more people still interested in this sector. I think it have a good vision from their boards. So I think that real estate still the most important banking sector. Still, I recommend banking system.
You talked about education, and other two sectors that seem to be attractive, especially after undergoing the pandemic and the effects of the COVID pandemic on us all, the IT and the medical sectors. Don't you see those as having a high potential and low risk, if you will, at this stage?
I think they are rising from last year. We have the IT sector. We have just one stock listed in this sector. I think we need more firms to be listed for that sector. So it have low risk, like what you said, and I think medical sector is important, but medical sector is not liquid in the Egyptian exchange market. So if I recommend any sector, I recommend sectors with liquidity.
Right. Liquidity, and what about the risk factor?
It's important, but to the structure of the investors now in the stock exchange, I think individuals are more interested about liquidity.
What about the food and agri sectors?
Still have good results, but not liquid in the market, in the stock exchange. I think institutions are more interested in this sector.
Are there needed changes within the index and the way it is calculated? It's would rely on financial analysis, some will rely on technical analysis, and some would say neither works.
Actually, through last year and this year, we are working with technical analysis. We are not working with financials. According to the individual and changes in the structure of the market, individuals are more controlling the market. So they are working technical analysis, while institutions work for financial analysis. So they are still working to the EGX 30, but EGX 70 has more returns for the individual than changes in EGX 30.
Why do you say institutional investors work with EGX 30 while retail investors work with EGX 70? Is it because of the long-term nature of investments?
Long-term and structure of these companies in EGX 30, they are more more financial in their structure, so the institutions are more interested about the financials, so they are interested in investing in EGX 30, while investors or small investors or retailers are more interested about trading for the short term, so they interested with EGX 70 and its stocks. Huge difference between the two strategies.
Easy in, easy out.
Yes.
What about the hot money in the market at the current stage?
Actually, we have the last few years we are working with hot money, and through last year hot money was the main invest in the Egyptian exchange. According to the people who are working for, they were so fear about the pandemic, so they are thinking.
Exited?
No, they are interested about going in, going out, short-term investing, actually that reflected on the rows of EGX 70 more than EGX 30. Institutions in Egyptian exchange market were reduced, or they have
Declined,
declined
amount
their
declined?
yes, their liquidity, and the more liquidity have been taken by the individual.
By individual investors.
Yes.
So there is a benefit to hot money after all.
Yes, actually, in the year of pandemic, hot money was have a part or have a main role in the stock exchange, reflected on the rows of the EGX 70.
So as an emerging market, you need to be an attractive, easy in, easy out market for international quick money, if you will, quick investments.
Actually, it's a good way to invest. We have to have investors, short-term investor, long-term investor, institutions, all types of investors in the market. But here in Egyptian exchange, we have a fragile market. We need more companies. We have to reduce obstacles that prevent investors from entering the market or out of the market. We have to put new vision for the market.
So it's a test tool, if you will, for the investors. They say always that the stock exchange is a mirror. That here we need to adopt this saying, or we don't need to adopt the saying?
We need to adapt. Actually, in the last 2 years, Egypt has economic reform, we said, praised by international institutions, but the Egyptian exchange didn't reflect that lock international institutions. The market is so fragile that we have lack of liquidity in the market. We haven't.
So you need the stock market to reflect the successes of the economic reform that took place during the past period and that were praised by international institutions or international rating agencies.
Yes.
Ms. Rania Yaqub, member of the Egyptian Stock Exchange Board, thank you very much for joining us here. We haven't talked about the carbon footprint and the governance
That's requirements. It's a new trend in the world.
Yes, and I believe that we will have to address this issue in our capital market if we are seeking to have more green investments.
I think we have issued the green investment, green investment and green bonds.
Exactly. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this show. I take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy new Hijri year, and also happy fasting for our Egyptian friends and family. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ayman Salah. Good night.